What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. There are a lot of changes that have come about in Pokémon over the years, and a lot of things that have remained comfortably the same. However, there are some pretty wild ideas floating around the fanbase that we can likewise be assured will not happen, and indeed are not likely to ever come about. So, let's see what are the top 6 ideas that will never happen in Pokémon. Number 6. Double items. One of the biggest, long-lasting, fundamental changes in Pokémon battling was the introduction of hold items. This allowed your team to take on a wide array of different characteristics that can help, whether it be regaining health, boosting stats, or bypassing other effects. And of course, more recently, items have been tied to massive power-ups in battle as well. An item can be useful on any Pokémon, but putting 2 highly useful items on an already overpowered Pokémon would simply bring the end of competition as we know it. People were worried about Mega Rayquaza getting an item. Imagine if Landorus had a Choice Band and a Leftovers to boost its strength while also healing. There are probably some even scarier combinations of Pokémon with 2 items that somebody more familiar with competitive battling could probably identify, but really putting together any pairing of items would drastically improve even the weakest of Pokémon in the early game. So that's why it'll never happen. 2 items at once might even be more powerful than adding a few hundred points to a Pokémon's base stats for all of the phenomenal and unpredictable combos that your opponent could concoct. So, the potential to give any Pokémon 2 random items out of the hundreds they've created would craft a chaos that they're not ever likely to indulge. Number 5. Backwards compatibility. I'll cover this one quickly because the short story is that we did indeed have backwards compatibility in Pokémon already, way back at Gen 2 with the Time Capsule, allowing transfers to Gold and Silver, but also back to Red and Blue. However, obviously this was only for Kanto Pokémon, as it would be impossible to have a Pokémon on a game that wasn't programmed for it. So I'm not upset about that. But that rule has stuck to this day. Even with the Pokémon Bank feature, if you capture a regular old Pikachu in Gen 7, you couldn't send it back to the Gen 6 games, even though they can both access the same bank, and the Pokémon could be found in both games. Now, the only reason I bring this up is because now, with Pokémon residing firmly on the Switch, there is an opportunity to change it. But I don't think it'll happen. Pokémon games on the Switch have already received updates to their software, some to change things substantially, like with the Galar DLC, so theoretically they could send out patches to old games on the console to include new Pokémon, but let's be real. When's the last time that they actively encouraged people to play the Let's Go games? Sure, there are some rewards for shared save data in the newer games, but it's not like they're updating it to be compatible with even the other remakes on the same system. So while it could actually be conceivable for maybe the first time since the Game Boy, they wouldn't do it because they generally move on from projects once they put them out and start on the next thing instead of tinkering around with the finished product, for better or for worse. Number 4. Blood. I won't spend too long on this one either, since I kind of covered this topic in my Things You Don't Actually Want in Pokémon video, but seriously, there will never be blood in a Pokémon game. First of all, they might not have any. They're magical creatures, you don't know. Gorbis' dex entry only says bodily fluids. And hey, the ghost types definitely wouldn't have any. But besides that, I've seen the inclusion of gore or gratuitous violence in fan-made games, or even the pathetic PETA-sponsored Pokémon Black and Blue, and they always just come off as trying way too hard to be edgy and cool. You know what's already cool? Pokémon! And you don't need to alienate the target demographic just to try and spruce things up. Simply put, Pokémon is aimed at children, even if the kids that first played the games have stuck around. They would never risk a game rating that would jeopardize that. They got rid of the game corner just to eliminate any reference to gambling. A lot of people say that they want a more mature Pokémon game, but if they mean an actual M on the box, I'm afraid their blood may run cold. Number 3. 4-stage lines. There are some rules of Pokémon that can bend slightly, like maybe changing types between generations, but there are also unwritten rules that you just don't break. and one of those is making a Pokemon line with more than 3 stages. Now, real quick, I know that some people will point to Mega Evolution, but that is not at all what we're talking about. A temporary power-up that resets after every use and cannot be seen outside of battle is not an extra evolution in the line, even if they erroneously used the word to describe it. Nobody considers Gigantamaxing a new evolution. Is it just because they didn't use the word? You look at Digimon and they have all sorts of stages, with side offshoots and fusions, but Pokemon has maintained its strict policy over the years of no more than 3 members in a straight evolutionary line. There are branches, sure, but Jolteon doesn't evolve into Umbreon, who then evolves into Glaceon. Branched evolutions are always a choice. You have options, but the Pokemon in your party will never go beyond a 3rd stage. And when you think about it, this policy does make sense as a tool to encourage variety, because you can't keep returning to the same lines indefinitely, or at least it mostly works that way. Also, the inverse will never be true either, with every Pokemon line gaining 3 stages. And I don't think anyone was expecting this, but you can rest assured this will not happen. Some lines should never be crossed, and it just wouldn't be Pokemon after that. Number 2. More slots. As we mentioned, the Game Corner is gone, so instead what I'm talking about is the fact that they will never afford us an additional space in a Pokemon party. Now, to be fair, I think it was stated that they did toy with this idea, I think around Gen 3 with upping the Pokemon you could carry to 8 or so, but they didn't do that, and now it's far too late. 'Cause here's the thing, I get the idea of wanting to use more Pokemon. There are generally a dozen or more great entries in each generation that plenty of people want to try out, but that's part of what makes Pokemon so great. Sure, some people just use their starter the whole time, but for others you have to strategize which Pokemon you could choose for your limited team. If you like 2 fire types in a new game, you'll likely have to pick one in order to have a balanced setup. And while we're at it, the same holds true for Pokemon moves as well. There are 4 individual move slots for each Pokemon, and that's it. They will naturally try to learn like 30, and most of them can end up learning about 100. So wouldn't it be nice if they allowed us to have more moves at one time? Too bad, they'll never do it. Sure, some abilities could effectively imitate another move, but as we said before, this adds to the strategy of the whole essence of Pokemon. Besides, restricting the number of moves a Pokemon has means that you can use them multiple times and have them fill different roles if you want. And it encourages you to play the game multiple times to use all of the cool Pokemon you want beyond just the first 6. Which could even drive people to buy the other version just for the ability to have more than one team of Pokemon. And if anything can even possibly drive sales, they definitely won't be changing that. Number 1. Getting rid of Pokemon. Now let me explain this one, because obviously in recent times, they have been more restrictive in what kinds of Pokemon you're able to catch in certain games. But that's not exactly what we're talking about. It's one thing to not be able to find a Pokemon or 2 in the wild, or show up in the decks outside of the external paid service, but I'm talking about a complete erasure of a Pokemon. No matter how far we go in this franchise, no matter how many Pokemon they create, there will never be a time when they delete a Pokemon from the roster. Even if a Pokemon sits out for a generation or even multiple, it will still be counted amongst the rest. Pokemon that I thought were outcasts, that very few people ever liked, like Mr. Mime or Farfetch'd, have gotten attention after years of being ignored. So just because a Pokemon may not appear in a regional dex, doesn't mean that they'll lose their spot in the national dex. Because let's be honest, we're no longer in the days of designing the games so that you can catch them all in one generation. So we can expect some Pokemon to take a step back, but that doesn't mean that they're gone for good. Aside from having to change the official numbers of the national dex, which they would never do, the people behind the curtain wouldn't cut off a potential avenue for future creativity. As I said, past lackluster Pokemon can get upgrades out of nowhere, and even Pokemon with a questionable history like Jinx still have the possibility for commercial success for plushes or other merchandise. I'm sure that someone out there would buy it. If nothing else, they'll be kept around as fodder to fill out different environments, so there's more than a handful of different Pokémon per biome in each generation. Basically, no matter how much we might disparage a Pokémon or just ignore them, it will not be enough for the people in charge to ever pull the plug and banish anything that they had taken the time to create in the first place. Because even if they are your least favorite, you still have to value all of your kids at least a little bit. Now, if you're from the future, go ahead and tell me how wrong I was about that one point because of what the Pokémon Company just announced. What do you think are things that are never gonna happen in Pokémon? Let me know down in the comments. Also, be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And we'll see you around next time!